Okay, hello and welcome back. We are continuing with Gilded Shadows today. I've been looking forward to this. You know, normally I'm just kind of like, oh, I really should stream, but I'm kind of tired. But no, I really want to get into this story. Part of it is because I did do the demo. So I played through this part, so I want to get through this part so I can get to the part that I haven't played before. So, I did go back and do a different option here, because this was the one I did last week during the stream, and I went ahead and did this one because I noticed I can actually sort of read the options I didn't do. So I noticed it said report to the police. So I was like, oh, well, let's see if anything happens there, and nothing really comes of it, at least not so far. So this is all for Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the one we're getting into today, and you notice there's nothing here highlighted, which shows that I haven't played through Chapter 2. So part of me is tempted to try to do 2 and 3, but we'll see how far I get, how long it takes me to get through Chapter 2, and then I'll decide. And helps if I actually bring up my little, open my Twitch on my tablet so I can keep an eye on the stream that way. I don't have multiple monitors. There we go. Now I can see chat. I think what's gonna happen, most likely, is that I'm going to do 2 and 3 as separate streams, and then 4 and whichever interlude I get at the end will probably be the same week. So it's going to take me at least 4 weeks to actually get through all these, depending on how long it takes me to get through the chapters, because of course I did take time to read glossary entries and stuff last week. So we'll see how things look. But my hope is to do Chapter 4 in whichever interlude I get, because you get one or the other, you don't get both. I remember that much. So anyway, let's jump into Chapter 2, Captured Queen. So, Chapter 1 was in Passant, I believe. I don't remember exactly what it was called. Captured Queen. So I know exactly what's being hinted at here, but I'm trying not to say anything on stream because I want people to be surprised if they haven't seen any live playthroughs before or played this themselves. So yeah, Captured Queen. Morning came way too soon. Oh, right. Need to pull out my notebook that I use to keep track. I'm actually going to do... No. Well, we're not going to keep track of that. Because that's not... I was going to write down that extra bit that I did, but that I didn't actually save that. So I saved, doing the different route, and then thanking the Ari. I don't get why he goes by Ari, because Ariel is, I guess because Ariel is associated with women these days for the most part, even though technically it's a gender neutral name. I mean, Ariel is in, there's a character named Ariel in The Tempest, and I've seen the character played by a man and a woman. So, but I guess because of The Little Mermaid, people think of Ariel as a girl, as a woman's name now. Female name, feminine. There we go, feminine. So yeah, I can understand. And this is supposed to be set after that, in the future, basically. Yeah, anyway, morning came way too soon. I didn't have to be up early, but my brain was trained to wake at a specific hour. Even without my alarm, my eyes popped open an hour after daylight. I hear that. So, time jumped, so we sprang forward last Sunday. And, it's been a week and I'm still having trouble getting used to the time change. My phone automatically jumped ahead, my tablet automatically jumped ahead, my computer automatically jumped ahead, and then I got in my car to go somewhere, and it was still an hour behind. But I knew about what time I got in the car, so I double checked, and it's really easy to change the time on my car. My previous car, not so much. I ended up breaking the clock, so it was always wrong anyway. So I started wearing a watch. And now I can't remember how to change my watch. So I leave my watch an hour behind until daylight saving time is over. As long as I remember that my watch is an hour behind, I'm okay. I was just like I didn't have to actually get up and go to class. I rolled over for the 20th time, mashing my face into the pillow in the hope I could suffocate myself back to sleep, or maybe just into a coma. I wasn't picky. Now, right before she fell asleep, she was reading about Queen Titania in A Midsummer Night's Dream because the stranger who chased her quoted Midsummer Night's Dream. And her name is Dahlia Blumenthal, and the traits that we picked for her right off the bat were confident, flexible, and emotional. I lifted my head and glared at the display panel on my bedside table. I stayed up far too late reading about Earth's fairy mythology. It's been a pretty fascinating read, actually. Really, not actually. But as I flopped onto my back, throwing an arm across my eyes to block out the daylight, I was definitely doubting the decision to stay up until who knows when. 0400 hadn't been the best time for reading, but it had gotten my mind off the evening's events prior to that, and that had kind of been the point. Still, it probably hadn't been a good idea when I was going to wake up at 0700. Finally gave it up and rolled out of bed with another groan. I just have to catch a nap later on. Might as well just throw my entire sleep schedule out while I'm at it. I yawned as I stumbled to the kitchen for a glass of water, because I still didn't have anything else in the house. Last night I had too many distractions. I'd been too freaked out to place an order for groceries, which meant the kitchen was still empty. And a quick check confirmed all the morning slots were already taken. Of course! That meant going shopping in person, even though I didn't really want to. Turned on the news as I leaned against the counter and yawned into my glass of water. Woman's face buzzed into view, hovering over the image from last night. The image was of the fountain where I'd seen the crowd clustered the night before. Several officers were standing around it, talking to one another, and a few random onlookers. The anchor began to discuss the young woman assaulted in an alley by an unregistered Esper after the onlookers dispersed and the culprit fled. The scene shifted to the alley where I'd encountered that man. Most domes on both sides of the planet require some kind of registration process for any human with an EA score above the planetary standard. The cities and nations differ in their policies regarding Esper regulations and what must be done with Espers. It's common to require them to be at least placed on a registry. Many places, such as New Albion, also require young Espers to go through some kind of training to control their abilities and acquire accredited certification stating such. As Endgame is one of the only places on the planet where one can undergo this kind of training, it is common for young Espers to be claimed and recruited into Endgame's academy. Unregistered or rogue Espers are those that fly under the radar and somehow avoid detection. This can be easy in domes where testing and reporting is lax, but can happen in more stringent domes as well. And there are people who strive to avoid detection due to regulatory policies or not wanting their lives defined by their abilities. There are sometimes policies regarding higher-ranking Espers that force them into specific career paths or narrow the choices down to joining Endgame. It is also known that other factions may try to recruit or else pose a danger to unaffiliated Espers. Each place has its own policies for handling unregistered Espers, but consequences often vary based on the rank of the Esper, and some places do not have many clear policies for dealing with adult Espers at all. Most governments have little incentive to penalize them harshly, though, but Endgame is always eager to recruit adult Espers if only to keep them out of other factions who might also be keen to acquire their skills. And historically, governments haven't always been interested in clashing with Endgame over the treatment of Espers. However, with the advent of the fairy phenomenon, this may be set to change as more and more Espers are avoiding childhood detection protocols, desperately trying to avoid forced recruitment in any number of factions willing to go to any length to get to them. Endgame included. Fairy phenomenon. I think this was covered. Fairies, also referred to as F-class, are the result of natural mutation that occurred in humans rather than changes initiated by the original nanite infection of the first colonists. Right. Yeah, we covered that last week. And to my embarrassment, there is definitely a recording of the incident. Watching a censored version of myself flail my way away from an attacker was definitely how I wanted to start my day. Of course! Though I should be grateful I was censored, but I still felt my cheeks grow uncomfortably warm, as if my kitchen appliances were judging the way I'd forgotten every self-defense move I knew when faced with an actual assailant. It's not the same when you're facing someone in an alley and not a gym with protective gear and mats on the floor. This is true. Seeing the report reminded me to check if the information I sent in last night had gone through. Set the glass of water down and pulled up a visual of any messages left while I'd been sleeping. Sure enough, there were two from the safety department. One was one of those silly messages notifying me that I sent in a report, as if I didn't already know I sent in a report. Oh, this just in case someone sent it in, without you knowing. Like, I keep getting text messages for this case for someone else who I assume gave them my information, my contact information instead of their own, and now they're hounding me basically, so I ended up blocking them. I also messaged back saying, "This is not the person you're looking for, leave me alone." The other was a notification informing me that, as a witness, I would need to come at my earliest convenience to answer some questions in person. I made a face at that. It wasn't really convenient at all, but I didn't think I'd get out of it if I responded with that. I should probably just get it over with. There goes my afternoon. Hopefully there wasn't too much they needed to ask. They already had footage of it all, so I wasn't sure what else I could tell them in a face-to-face interview. Beyond potentially implicating myself in the shattering of someone's window with my mind, of course. Which I really did not want to do today. Or ever. I closed the interface and frowned at the news report, catching just the tail end. It said nothing about my rescuer. They didn't show any footage of him, either. Seemed like that man, Ari, was at least right about him being an Esper. It made the shattered window easier to explain. And I didn't want to have to lie about it. For the time being, they were putting it all on drug use and suggesting it was evidence of another small crime ring in the city related to Crimson. Then again, they would pin everything on Crimson if they could. They insisted every crime in Delphine had its roots in Crimson, and the organization allegedly had its claws pretty deep in New Albion as well. But I guess it would be up to the criminal division of the safety department. Everything on the news was speculation. I wasn't looking forward to answering the questions at all. Hopefully one interview was all they would need. It wasn't like anything terrible had happened to me. I didn't want to make a bigger deal of it than necessary. If they expected me to agree to press charges, they were going to be disappointed. I just wanted him to get some help. I didn't want to get him into trouble, though I guess that was inevitable regardless of what I did. I bit back another yawn. If I didn't hurry and get the shopping done, I'd run out of time, but there was still an opportunity for a late brunch if I could beat the crowds this morning. This time I'll just stick close to home, though. There was a grocer at the end of the block, and they had a hydroponic garden so you could pick your own produce, which was fantastic. After that, I suppose I'd have to go give my statement in person. I leaned on the counter, rubbing a finger against my lower lip. I needed to carefully plan what I was going to tell them. Though I didn't think sounding too rehearsed was wise. I didn't want to reveal that I could have been responsible for that window shattering like that. I had managed to keep that little fact swept under the rug for so long. Far too long to be outed now. That wouldn't exactly have been the first time I caught something like that, that was for sure. I placed the glass in the sink and went to get dressed. It was just that there weren't many people who knew I was an Esper. Trent was the only one I'd ever told. Even Mum didn't know. Aha! So, something that was hidden in the previous chapter is now explicitly stated. We are an Esper. But what rank are we? We don't know. And as far as I knew, no one else in my family had ever exhibited anything other than the planetary standard of 1 to 2 on the EA scale, which we covered before. 1 to 2.9 are considered the planetary standard. Everyone on the surface of Arcalis and Syrah possess at least this much psi ability. It does not allow for active use of telekinesis of any kind. It does give people a sort of mild clairvoyance and abnormal mental focus that allows them to utilize the nanosystem effectively. So, okay. I'm just adding this to my notes to read to 7.9. Helps if I can write. I know how to write, honestly. Rooks, knights, and bishops are known to reach scores of 12 to 3.9. Okay. Sorry. Still a little rough throat, but my brothers and parents were normal. Grandparents, cousins, none of them ranked high enough to be considered a true Esper. Hang on. Okay, I think I screwed up somewhere in my notes. So rooks, knights, and bishops are anywhere from 8 to 13.9. 14 and above is basically queen. Whoops, 14.5. I should have written this in pencil. Oh well. Anyway, that gives us an idea. As for myself, I didn't know what my exact score might be. I certainly had the ability. I'd even tested positive in one of the many assessments we'd had back in primary. But when they did the genetic tests and scans, I didn't have any physiological indicators. Reassessment of my practical ability didn't show any side traits, so I'd been labeled as a false positive. I'm sure that's happened before. But I wasn't. There had always been little incidents throughout the years, nothing major, nothing I couldn't hack from most people anyway. I hadn't planned to tell Trent either. He only found out because we'd lived together for a while, and it was hard to hide it from someone interested in studying Espers. But he had kept the secret. If anyone could understand why I might want to, he could. Even he had doubted that I ranked much over 3 or 4 on the EA scale. Nothing I'd ever managed to do indicated I could be stronger than that. As a child, even that would have been enough to get Endgame's attention, and I didn't want to be recruited for this ability, by them or anyone else. Endgame is also referred to as a planetary defense organization. They are a quasi-military force made of Espers. Surprised they didn't call the 3 to 7.9 pawns, but maybe that would have been too on the nose. No, they're basically just unranked. Quasi military force made of Espers, and their goal is to help keep the peace across Arcala, Sierra, Dion, and even New Terra. Also, hi James, welcome back. Endgame has a very broad function that covers protecting, defending, and keeping peace. It allows them to get involved and hired for anything from simple guarding or escort jobs to negotiating treaties or fighting organized crimes. They're sometimes consulted on smaller investigations, but their most frequent jobs tend to involve Esper crimes. They are officially politically neutral, so they're sometimes asked to oversee various kinds of negotiations between hostile nations, states, colonies, and the like. They also help with disaster relief during times of natural disasters. They sometimes provide security for important events. They act as a sort of border patrol and protection for the Twilight Wastes, and preventing incursions by groups that shouldn't be there. They've even been hired to oversee important business negotiations. They answer to no law enforcement group and try to keep a neutral stance when it comes to how any nation or city-state is ruled. Generally speaking, they err on the side of a nation's sovereignty and will only get involved in politically charged situations when asked to do so. They tread carefully in these instances for fear of making the situation worse, but this means they sometimes do not get involved in cases where their help might genuinely be needed. This has caused some bitterness and resentment from people who believe Endgame doesn't care about their suffering. While the group enjoys a great deal of public support, particularly in some regions, they also have many enemies and detractors. Twilight Waste filled with sparkly vampires by any chance? No, I don't think vampires are a thing here. Though Endgame technically has jurisdiction across Arcalis, there are places their involvement is unwelcome, and they're known to be wary of forcing themselves into these places. Endgame also technically has the right to recruit any Esper into their organization or remove any potentially dangerous Esper from the public. Not every city or nation agrees with this policy, and Esper regulations vary widely across the planet. Even so, Endgame remains the largest and most powerful consolidated Esper force on the planet, and one of the only places where young Espers can learn to use their abilities safely, as it runs a large academy designed exclusively for this purpose. Endgame is made up of multiple departments and divisions, including combat divisions, support divisions, research divisions, and so on. The Endgame forces are headed by the highest-ranking king, currently Magnus Ulrich, who is answerable to and sits on a council of non-Espers. Endgame's council is a ruling body that has the entire organization. The 9-person council is made up almost entirely of non-Espers and are considered the final decision-makers for all of Endgame's most important decisions. So non-Espers making decisions for an organization made up of Espers. That doesn't sound sketchy at all. The council delegates day-to-day decisions to department heads and other leaders within the organization, but big decisions are always debated by and decided upon by the council itself. The council is advised by some Espers or Esper groups, such as the head king rank and the Morai, but although considered the head of the Esper forces, many consider Magnus Ulrich little more than a figurehead at the beck and call of the council itself. Okay, going down a and ominous and all, right? This is like me looking something up on Wikipedia, and then something in the article catches my attention, so I click to a new article, and then a new article, and a new article. And, yeah. I just never wanted that. Endgame's work was important. They were the Planetary Defense Organization. They helped keep the peace across our cause, Sierra Leone. I'd heard they even made it up to the new Terra station, and those guys really wanted anything to do with us surface dwellers. Played Control. Doesn't sound like something I played. In its own way, it was incredible and fascinating. That just wasn't the path I'd chosen. I wanted to go where I wanted to go, not where I was told to go. I wanted to research, to learn about the history of this world, not be some sort of psychic soldier. I hear that. Just because you have these abilities doesn't mean they have to define what you do with your life. Third-person game, but there are dozens of documents scattered around to read, and it's actually really good. I'll have to look that up. I have plenty of games to play, but what's one more, right? World away from a VN though. You think I only play VNs? I play Final Fantasy 14 most of the time. I don't have an Xbox. I don't play many consoles. The only console game system I've ever had was the Nintendo system. The very first kind. And the only games we had were Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and I forget what it was called, but you were basically a wizard wandering around. And we only had that because my grandparents gave it to us. But we never bothered to buy any consoles. If we bought anything, it was new PCs. But more than anything, I think the fear had always been that I'd be chained down by disability. That I wouldn't be me anymore. I'd be an Esper. I didn't want to be defined by that. So it's not like what happened the day before is a surprise. Well, I mean it was, but the fact that it happened, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it's always the potential for something to happen. But so far we've managed to keep people from noticing. But there would probably be no choice if people knew about me. Esters made up such a small portion of the population, far less than even 1%. Even the weaker ones were highly valued. Plenty of organizations wanted a low or mid-level infantry that managed to avoid being recruited to endgame. Once a person reaches a score of 3 on the EA scale, they are considered a full Esper and classified as an infantry-level Esper. And ranked Espers? In very high demand if you somehow manage to use your connections to dodge endgame. But all those jobs were the same. Security, contract and business negotiations, law enforcement. If I had been discovered as a child, that's all that would have awaited me. So I kept a secret, thinking that if I could just hide it until I was out of school, I'd be fine. Adults had way more leverage than children when it came to that sort of thing. And so far, it had never been a problem. So far. That's the key phrase here. So far. I paused just outside the door to my building and took a long, slow breath to clear my head. I would just have to hide it, as I always had. Besides, I had never tested positive again after that one time. With the situation at hand, they had no reason to jump to any specific conclusions about me. It would be fine. I would be fine. Telling myself that, I decided to get on with my day and not dwell on it. There was a man talking, or arguing, with the building security when I stepped outside. I have completely ignored them as I stepped around them. But there was a second man nearby, his hair fading from silver at the roots to pink at the ends. I nodded politely as I passed, my thoughts turning towards shopping and the things I was going to purchase. But I didn't get very much further down the footpath. Hold on, wait, miss, wait! My heart started thumping against my ribs at the sound of an unfamiliar man just behind me. Even though he wasn't strange or bedraggled, and he wasn't threatening me, I turned back hesitantly. Yes? Winter, you're scaring her. Wait, what? The pink-haired man looked startled at the very thought that maybe it wasn't a great idea to run after a woman while shouting at her. The dark-haired man quickly joined him, flicking his worried gaze back to me. Shoved his hands in his pockets and offered an uncertain smile. I apologize if my partner startled you, but you're Dahlia Blumenthal, correct? It wasn't a question. I narrowed my eyes as I returned his frank gaze. He was fairly well dressed and tidy. The pink-haired man beside him was dressed more casually, making the two of them an unusual pair. But nothing about their attire gave any clues as to who they might be. Your partner? I'm Reuben Kellner, a special investigator with Paul. This is my partner, Winter Ashton. You can check your interface to verify our identities. United Triad Police Organization. So they're kind of take care of the stuff like what happened the day before. I bit my lip and did just that, and sure enough, like all public employees, their identification was openly available. That would also explain how they knew who I was. Their positions would have allowed them access to my full information as well. Special investigators, huh? I didn't mean to run after you like that, but your doorman wouldn't let us in. Reuben here had been arguing with them for 10 minutes already. When I saw you come out, I just followed without thinking. Building security is fairly tight, so you're a student living alone as well. I'm sure they're extra cautious when people come looking for you. I don't know about that. There's just a process visitors have to go through, that's all. This unexpected meeting had me on edge again. Why would they come looking for me if I was supposed to go in for an interview anyway? I must have looked as nervous as I felt because Winter gave me a sheepish grin as he took a step away, tipping his head in the direction the fountain incident had taken place. Reuben, I think I'll head down to the crime scene and have a look around if you don't mind. It's not that far from here. You can handle this on your own, right? I'll be fine. We'll catch up later. See you. It was nice to meet you, Miss Blumenthal. He started away from us with a slow jog. Reuben watched him until he was gone before he turned back to me. Sorry about that, Miss Blumenthal. We have a lot of ground to cover today. Though the abruptness with which Winter left made it fairly apparent it was more for my benefit than anything. It's all right. But I hope you realize I already received a request to give a statement about the incident last night. I didn't realize someone would be stopping by. This morning they turned the incident over to our department, and I'm not sure they'd have informed you before your scheduled interview. I wanted to talk to you personally, so we decided to stop by while we were in the area. Unless you're too busy at the moment. Okay, we're gonna save. I try to save at all the choices right now. I'm not gonna roll a dice on this one because I know which option I want to pick. And it's a neutral option anyway, so it's not like it would go against or any of my choices. It's not that really. I just haven't eaten today. I've been busy with exams and my kitchen is empty. I was planning to do some errands, that's all. But if you need a statement now, I can postpone shopping. Why don't we talk over brunch instead? I just wanted to get your perspective on the attacker and exactly what happened. Aren't you on duty, Detective Kellner? You can call me Reuben, please. And I am allowed to eat during the workday, I hope you realize. I just can't let you treat me. That's what we call a bribe. He's flirting! First, I wasn't going to offer to treat you. Second, I don't have a reason to bribe you, unless you're accusing me of a crime. But I'll have you know, I was the one assaulted. Reuben laughed and shuffled closer, perhaps taking the teasing as a sign I dropped my guard a little. No, you're not under suspicion of anything. It's just that recordings could only show so much. It's necessary to hear from the victim as well. But if you're not comfortable with brunch, we can meet at the office later. No, you're already here. It'll be pointless to meet up later instead of taking care of this now. I saw a nice cafe earlier. All right, sure. Ruben was surprisingly amiable for a detective. Beautiful. And this is an interesting background. I would definitely enjoy living in somewhere that looks like this. I mean, I hadn't exactly met many. My younger brother had joined the safety department 2 years ago, but I hadn't met many of his colleagues. The way he talked about the special investigators always made it seem like they'd have been aloof and serious. Those were for local branches, though. I would imagine someone with Utpal would be even more aloof, though. Ruben wasn't like that at all. Didn't mean I wasn't nervous talking to him, but it helped that we were chatting at an open-air cafe and not a station somewhere. He was polite and professional, but also had a strange way of setting me at ease as we spoke. So you had never seen the man before? I hadn't. I mean, in fairness, I haven't done much but study lately and go to and from the university. Even if he had been looking around or anything, I doubt I'd have noticed. And he doesn't seem the type to hang out with your average university student anyway. No, he doesn't. I couldn't believe they still hadn't caught him. It seemed like he'd gone to ground after the incident and they weren't sure how to find him, even though he stood out as dramatically as he did. I'm sure having him go after you like that was frightening. Yeah, you could tell by how much I was screaming. Ruben's brows lowered as he leaned across the table, pushing his half-eaten food out of the way. You weren't hurt, were you? It seems you left the scene on your own afterwards, so I assumed you were fine. I wasn't hurt, no. Just a little unnerved, that's all. I'm glad. I suppose it's gotten around already, but you know the guy was an Esper, right? I was pretty sure, and the news reports also mentioned it. I mean, he was really fast. And the way that window shattered. We're assuming that was an accidental use of telekinesis, probably sparked by him getting worked up like that. I don't know how many people actually know this, but I'm going to read it anyway. Telekinesis, the ability to affect the physical world without physical interaction. Telekinesis is another ubiquitous ability for Espers. Generally speaking, those who have an EA score above the planetary standard are capable of at least mild telekinesis. Though some classifications of Espers, such as bishops and queens, specialize in high-level telekinesis, it can be used by all ranks and classes, even low-level Espers. Generally, telekinesis is safe to use on non-living solids. Most N-class Espers are not capable of utilizing telekinesis on liquids and gases. Attempting to use telekinesis on conscious humans is considered incredibly dangerous for the target. F-class Espers have demonstrated the ability to use telekinesis in unusual ways and on substances, or to achieve things that would not normally be considered possible. And F-class Espers are fairy class. N-class are nano-Espers. Right, okay. From the way everything played out, his telekinesis is somewhat abnormal. But it's hard to say. To tell the truth, the way he chased after you, the way he fled and moved in general, it all indicates he has some Rook-like abilities. Rook-ranked Espers are usually scored somewhere between an 8 and a 12 on the EA scale. Oh. I'm going to have to redo my notes entirely. But I will save that for after the stream. It would normally be strange for an Esper ranked that high to go unnoticed for so long, especially here in Cecilis. In the past, the only unregistered Espers that would turn up in New Albion, totally unaffiliated, were pretty low level. To be honest, when I first pulled up your file, I thought you might be one as well. My heart rate skyrocketed instantly as soon as you said that. Of course, we quickly dismissed that when we looked through your records. Your testing has been normal since you were a child, but we initially thought that might have been why he targeted you specifically. I don't think that was it. I agree. So that man was a ranked Esper. Well, possibly. Like I said, it's rare for one to go unnoticed so long here. Usually if Endgame doesn't home in on someone early, someone else swoops in and shelters them, or keeps them away from prying eyes until they're older, so by the time they do surface, they're affiliated with someone, some faction or another. This guy doesn't seem to be. I lowered my eyes to the tabletop thoughtfully. Unaffiliated. You said in the past, earlier. Well, you've probably heard of F-class Espers, right? Though I guess you're more likely to have heard them called fairies. Of course I have. Then you're probably aware there's still a lot we don't know about them. They work by a whole different set of rules. Endgame doesn't seem to be able to detect them the way they can with N-class, and they can slip through the normal testing in schools as well. Dun dun dun! More and more of these Esper-related incidents result from these fairies causing issues or getting caught up in things. Not just lower level ones either. These days we have cases with unaffiliated Espers on par with named nano ranks like Rooks or Knights. And I've got a feeling it's only going to get worse from here. Chekhov's exposition, yep. Sorry, the fact that my notes are wrong is gonna bug me. You'd think I'd have kept better notes before, but I didn't know when I would get to play Gilded Shadows properly, so I didn't keep notes. Okay. That's fixed. He suddenly seemed aware of the dark tone the conversation had taken. Ah, I didn't mean to sound so dire. I just mean that Espers among the general populace are probably going to become more commonplace. It's not like Espers are a problem. Espers are normal citizens like everyone else and deserve the same protections, in my opinion. I'll fix them after. I used whiteout on my incorrect notes, so now I don't have that glaring at me. But even the SI department struggles to manage some of these cases, so it's always worrying when we come across a ranked Esper like this guy. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. You seem pretty well versed in Espers. Well, most of the crime special investigations looked at are Esper related. Even before fairies showed up, there were plenty of infantry levels that were unregistered. Or registered and working for your average organization or company out there instead of with Endgame. Now it's becoming more commonplace. I didn't realize the situation with fairies was actually a significant concern. Well, I think some attention is given to how it's presented in the media, but of growing importance, yes. It just hasn't really blown up significantly yet. Yet, huh? Which meant he thought it would at some point, probably. Though that was another problem. I had other things to worry about at that moment. I'm glad it looked like he wasn't questioning my status at all for now. Though it felt a little unfair the other guy was getting all the blame for destroying public property. So I went off on a tangent like that. I was supposed to be listening to your side of what happened yesterday. It's alright. I know the guy was saying some pretty off-the-wall things. I guess there's not much chance you could make sense of it. Not really, but at one point he quoted a play. I'm not sure that there's any relevance to that either, though. I'm really messing that line up. I'm not sure there's really any relevance to that either, though. There we go. A play? That's unusual. I assume you know which play if you recognize the quote. It's called A Midsummer Night's Dream. Huh, never heard of it. I have to admit I don't watch many plays. I had the entire works of Shakespeare in a book in my bookcase. I could eventually figure out which play it was. Well, it's pretty old. From Earth, actually. His eyebrow shot up almost comically at that. Earth? Really? Huh, doubt that's required reading for his sort. His sort? Sorry, I didn't mean anything by that. I imagine that sounded pretty jaded. I hope I didn't seem accusatory. I'm sure you see a lot in your line of work, so it's easy to become jaded. It is, but I try hard to stay unbiased. I shouldn't have said that. I'll pretend I didn't hear it. I'll make sure to leave it off the records, too. I watched him as he looked down at the display in his hand, typing into it with a frown. Oh, he's so handsome. Oh, how far humanity has fallen. It's been quite a long time. Basically, they were on sleeper ships, and they ended up on this planet. And they were on the sleeper ships for hundreds of years, so... And Shakespeare is kind of old-fashioned, even for us. So if it's been hundreds of years for them, yeah. It was strange seeing someone use a handheld device for something like that, though I could understand it. Sometimes I prefer to take notes by hand as well. It helped me remember them better. There is actually scientific proof that taking notes by hand helps you remember things better. So, I used to use a laptop, and I will admit I screwed around a bit instead of taking notes. But when I got my tablet, I started taking notes on that with a tablet pencil, and made it so much easier to remember, and I didn't have a whole bunch of paper. Because I was actively engaging with the content, I suppose. Perhaps it was the same for him. Canterbury Tales, 900 years ago. I'm sorry, I associate Chaucer with A Knight's Tale, starring Heath Ledger, where Paul Bettany played Chaucer and was his herald, basically. But yeah, I think I read a little bit of the Canterbury Tales. He really took his job seriously. Not that I'd have expected anything else, of course. Still, Reuben looked thoughtful for a moment. A Midsummer Night's Dream, huh? I'll have to look it up. And what about the guy we saw you with after the fact? Who was he? We haven't been able to identify him either. But you identified me right away? Reuben shrugged. Your records were easy to find. The attacker, not so much. The guy that helped you, also a no. Batman. He told me his name was Ariel Vaughn. Other than that, I don't know anything about him. I thought he might be some kind of officer or something. Got the feeling he was chasing that man. We don't have any footage of him from any other camera in the area. The one that was near you at the time flips out for a few minutes. We assume it was interference from the use of psi. Can that happen? Sometimes, depending on the psi waves being emitted. When the camera feed comes back, Mr. Vaughn is already there. He did seem to come out of nowhere, but it's also sort of covering my head, so... Well, I'd definitely like to speak to him, but it seems like that may not be easy. 6 weeks to be able to read a line without checking the dictionary. Even Shakespeare can be hard for some people. I know there's annotated versions that help people understand. When I was in college, I took theater classes just for the hell of it, because I love theater. And we did Much Ado About Nothing, and the copy of the book we were required to buy from the bookstore actually had, on the left side was the actual text of the play, and on the right side were notes about what was going on and what was meant by the lines that we were reading to help us understand what was going on in the play. And like the line in Romeo and Juliet where she's like, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Wherefore does not mean where. Wherefore is actually an archaic form of why. So she's saying, why are you Romeo? Not where are you Romeo, which is what I thought. I'm sorry, I wish I could help. Don't worry about it. In the end, you were just dragged into something that has nothing to do with you. None of it's your fault. He stood and slipped his jacket back on before he held out his hand. I did the same as I took it. His hands were warm as he gave mine a very gentle squeeze. Kane decided to go back and forth between the two sprites. Thank you for your time, Dahlia. I appreciate it, and I apologize for taking up so much of your day. No, it's fine. I just wish I could have been more help. I want you to know that at this time we have no reason to believe this was anything other than a random attack. The man was an Esper, but he also seemed to be exhibiting signs of substance abuse. I don't think you have any reason to be worried about him coming after you again, or anything like that. Yeah, I'm in America, so maybe it's just a difference between growing up in America and growing up in the UK. But this was an older edition too. I don't think I kept it. I think once I got the consolidated anthology of Shakespeare's works, I donated the other copies that I had. But I'll inform you when he's in custody. I'm sure it'll help you sleep better. What makes you think I won't be able to sleep? I don't want to say anything, but those are some pretty dark circles under your eyes. Aw, he's being sweet. He's only pointing it out after you're like, wait, what? Ah! I hadn't even paid attention to that before I left the house. Reuben laughed as I put a hand to my face. Well, maybe it's just from staying up too late studying. I hear sleep deprivation is a chronic issue for higher tier students here in New Albion. I'll say. I hesitated, lowering my eyes briefly. That man, when you find him, what will happen to him? Worried about him? Well, like you said, he seemed to be in need of medical treatment. Medical treatment, that's all. That'll obviously be on the top of the list. We need to find out exactly what's wrong with him and get him treated, of course. But he's going to have to be held responsible to some degree for what happened. He assaulted a member of the public, damaged property. That's the reason to wear makeup, avoid comments like that. I don't bother with makeup. I don't go out that much anyway, and when I do, I'm just like, makeup's too much of a bother. He smiled gently at my expression. But no one was seriously injured, so I'm sure that the consequences won't be too severe. I'm glad to hear that. I released my hand and stepped away from our table. I'll be in touch. You take care of yourself, Dahlia. I will. Thank you, Reuben. I wish I could have been more help. No need to apologize at all. I'm sure we'll talk again. He shot me another smile and waved before he left. What a nice man. I was glad that I ended up talking to him instead of trying to convince him to let me wait. In spite of the topic, it hadn't really been that bad. When he was gone, I sat heavily back in my seat, thinking over the conversation. Fairies, huh? What was more curious was that they hadn't found the identity of my rescuer. I assumed they did a face recognition search to find me. Even though I had sent in a report, the fact that I had 2 messages from them suggested they may have identified me separately as well. It seemed like a face recognition search hadn't worked on Ari. But why not? Every citizen would have a public record that should pull up a match fairly easily. It wasn't really my job to find that out, but I couldn't help but wonder. Still, I had other things to do, and this was just something I wanted to put behind me. So she's got plenty of time to do her shopping? After that, my morning was fairly productive. I'd gone to the grocery to get enough food to last a few days, so I wouldn't have to leave my flat for a while. Most of that was set to be delivered later in the day. I only had a small bag of tangerines and other produce with me. And as I was leaving, a little chime popped up. I had a message. When I checked it, I found a short note from Reuben. Dahlia, thank you again for your time this morning. I appreciate you sitting down to chat with me. I've updated our system, and there's no longer any need for you to stop by to give a full statement. You can clear your schedule and hopefully spend the rest of the day relaxing. It sounds as if you need it. Reuben. I smiled slightly. That was nice of him. I was glad I wasn't going to have to go in for another statement. Some relaxation was definitely on the menu. For the time being, I was thinking of heading home and having that bath I never got the chance to have last night. Then maybe a nap. I was so focused on getting back that I wasn't paying much attention to my surroundings after that. Looking back, that was definitely my first mistake. Gonna save here, just because it feels like this is starting to bring us back to where we started. I had just exited a pedestrian-only area and was passing a sleek blue car parked near the footpath when it happened. Out of the corner of my eye, there was a strange flash, and for a split second, everything went silent. I quickly turned, but there was nothing there. Sound flowed back into the world, and everything was normal. I stood still for a long moment, just looking around as if that would help me work out what had happened. Something's wrong. It was as if there had just been a glitch, in reality, but no one else had seemed to notice it. Oh my gosh, we're in the Matrix! What the heck was that? I didn't get a chance to finish the thought. From behind me, someone grabbed me by the shoulders, causing me to drop everything in my hands. Without warning, I was being pushed towards the blue car I had passed only seconds earlier. What? No! Help! I twisted wildly to see who was there, but they kept me facing forward as they shoved me along. No! I was not allowing this! I planted both feet firmly on the footpath, pushing back against them as I let out a painful shriek. The surrounding people continued to walk past without even looking our way. What? How can they just ignore this? Okay, so we're going to actually save this over that because it's a choice. Okay, so our only 2 options are confident, fight against your attacker, stubborn, flee your attacker, and find help. We're actually choice lock lacking analytical trait. So this is interesting. I didn't pick stubborn, I picked flexible, but they're giving me the stubborn option. But I picked confident, so we're gonna fight against our attacker. Where's my pencil? There it is. It feels better for me to have this documented off outside the game. Okay, so we're gonna fight. That didn't matter right now. I just knew one thing. I wasn't getting in that car. I twisted, screamed, and tried to stomp the foot of the guy behind me. Whoops. I keep doing that. We had to stop just in front of the car. My attacker grabbed the back of my head, pushing it downward towards the open door. I freed one hand enough to brace it against the top edge of the car. At the same time, I jerked my head back as hard as I could. There was a startled grunt behind me and a flash of pain as my head connected with the guy's chin. I didn't have the leverage or space to elbow him in the side, so I clawed at his arm instead, grabbing and twisting to try to get him to let me go. All to no avail. With a low growl, the man caught my hand and pinned it behind my back. He pushed me flat against the side of the car, pinning me in place. His head dipped down as he hissed in a low voice. "Get in the car. We don't have time for this, cranky kidnapper." "Caleb, we don't have to force her." The surprisingly calm voice coming from inside the car was one I recognized right away. "Hey! I know you. I saw you before." "Ari? The guy from yesterday?" "Our orders were literally to force her. As long as she stays alive, that's all that matters to them." "Caleb, hi." There was a short, quick sigh. "We are not going to hurt you, but there are others nearby who will. Now get in the car. We don't have time for this." "Let go of me!" I was desperately trying to catch someone's eye as people passed us. Why was everyone acting like this was normal? Caleb moved back just enough to have room to place a hand at the back of my head to force me down and into the car. My shin smacked against the edge of the door, and I fell face first into the seat, only to be moved out of the way seconds later. I barely heard the muttered apology as he got in behind me and slammed the door shut. "Go!" I pressed back into the seat as Ari slammed his foot on the accelerator. Now alone with the two of them, I let out a shaky breath. "Now tell me what's going on." "What do you two want with me?" Neither answered. As expected, we are being tailed. Tailed by who? Why? Caleb shot me an exasperated look, but ignored my questions as he leaned over into the front seat. "How many?" Ari checked the console next to him, frowning. "At least 3 others are closing in on our location." 3 other what? Now that I had calmed down, I realized I should call for help. It's amazing how adrenaline could completely erode one's ability to think logically. Keeping one eye on the two of them, I tried to connect with the safety department through the net. Wait, what? Couldn't connect? That was impossible! You really think they wouldn't have thought of that? Ari made a wild turn, sending me headlong into the door. I only just managed to avoid slamming my head into the window. There was a flash of worry across Caleb's face as he pulled me back away from the door. "Time for the contingency plan. Van said she has an area cleared near here. Get us there." "I am trying to do so." I glanced behind us, realizing there was another car that appeared to be following us, just like they'd said. How did I get myself in the middle of some high-speed car chase? This was insane. "Change of plans. Get us out of here now, Ari." "You realize if I just teleport us out, they'll see the distortion trail?" "Teleport? Espers? Then we have to get them off our tail first." "You don't believe that's going to be possible." "Then we need a way to mask the trail so they can't track us." Ari made another sharp turn, this sending me face first into Caleb. He wrapped an arm around me as he braced himself against the front seat so he wouldn't slide around as much. I struggled against him, but his grip was too tight to get away. "Well?" "Hold on, I have an idea." "Let go of me!" I gave Caleb a shove, but it was like shoving a wall. He didn't even look my way. Instead, still holding me tightly, he moved us both aside as Ari apparently set the car to auto and climbed into the back seat with us. The car abruptly slammed into high gear. I could hear the high-pitched whine of the power coil as we sped up. Crushed into Caleb's chest as I was, I only caught a glimpse of what was outside the windscreen. We were on a long street with an intersection ahead, and across a building we were heading towards at full speed. "What are you—" "Hold on." "Wait, were they about to drive into that building at full speed?" My head filled with the sound of the power coil trying to overload. I clapped both hands to my ears and screamed. There was a flash of light and then everything stretched and twisted. I couldn't see anything or hear anything. It felt like my body was being ripped apart. My scream thinned into nothing. "Hey, this is where we started." and then we were tumbling onto the stone floor like we'd been spit out of thin air. I staggered forward, free from Caleb, but running wasn't an option. My entire field of vision was spinning. I pressed the back of my hand to my mouth, trying to swallow down the taste of bile and will my stomach to untie itself. That felt like a space fold, a wormhole, or something. There was no technology I knew of to create any sort of micro-wormhole. Caleb and Ari seemed unfazed by what had just happened, as if they'd done it 1,000 times before. They were speaking, but their words were like an uncomfortable buzz in my head. I couldn't make out what they were saying. My stomach finally gave out, and I gagged onto the floor, clutching my abdomen as it tied itself in painful knots. Everything tilted, and I hit the ground, barely managing to catch myself. I was still choking on the taste of acid and whatever was left in my stomach. That finally got attention. There were footsteps, and someone was crouching next to me. His hand passed gently over my back, a surprisingly gentle gesture from a damn kidnapper. "Oh, it's all right. Try to take deep breaths." Instinct told me to scramble away, but my body wasn't exactly in prime scrambling condition. I stayed in place, squinting at the ground and wishing he'd go away. The first jump can be a little disorienting. It'll pass soon. Disorienting was an understatement. I just ignored him and tried to figure out what to do next. I just need to get a hold of myself. How had all this happened? And more importantly, what did these two men want with me? I was hardly a prime kidnapping target. I leaned over to rest my forehead against the cold ground, trying to take slow, deep breaths. The soft trickle of water echoed to me from somewhere in the building, but it was otherwise quiet. Where were we? How far had we traveled during that jump, as he called it? Rubble littered the floor, chunks of mortar, bits of twisted metal, pebbles, dust, and broken glass. There was also a strange smell, like wet soil and rot. From what I could see, it looked like a damaged vivarium or hydroponic center. There were some broken containers scattered around and a few stray piles of dark soil, like the sort my father used at work. Vivarium. These centers and complexes are multifunctional units that exist across the planet. They were originally designated hubs that interconnected with each other's life support systems. Because the domes utilize bioregenerative life support that relies on an expansive and functional ecosystem within each dome, these vivariums were designed to facilitate those systems. On the day side, each sector usually has its own vivarium complex that works with the others in the dome to ensure as much energy efficiency as possible and to help maintain the delicate balance of each BLS. On the night side, many vivarium complexes remain non-functional, and the bioregenerative aspects of dome life support is thus relied upon, making their energy needs higher than the norm on the day side. Bioregenerative life support, BLSS, utilizes an artificial ecosystem created from a multitude of life forms all functioning in harmony to provide a natural habitation environment entirely closed off from exterior interactions. In the most efficient versions of these systems, all waste products produced by one species must be used by at least one other species to maintain the balance. However, the systems within the domes always require some outside waste management, so the ecospheres are not entirely self-contained. This is particularly true on the night side of the planet. The use of BLSS helped maintain a functioning life support setup for citizens while reducing the energy requirements of maintaining an entirely artificial system. However, most of the night-side domes were never set up properly to begin with and utilized far less plant life and ecosystem management than the day-side, compounding the existing problems they have with high energy consumption. Many domes cannot afford the infrastructure and labor costs required to get a proper BLSS set up and going strongly, so they continue to maintain artificial life support for most of their needs. Tendrils of vines sneaked through the wreckage, as well as some tenacious plants that had taken over after the place was damaged. None of it was useful for escaping, but it gave me an idea where we could be. There had been a sector of Cecilis hit by a terrorist group last year. It had been a shock to everyone to have an attack so deep into New Albion. Repairs had stalled due to some kind of bureaucratic nonsense. Much of it was still damaged, and the entire sector was off limits. Aside from a few security guards and municipal officers at the entrances, it was also supposed to be empty. I wasn't an expert on Espers, but I knew from Trent that most knights could only teleport short distances. Line of sight, maybe a few kilometers if they'd been to the location before. The damaged sector was around 12 kilometers from where I lived, so that held up. I tried to catch my breath and quell the nausea. Okay, good. That was good. that's where we were, then getting back home wouldn't be an impossibility, if I could get away. That was the problematic part, though. I shifted slightly, turned my head just enough to get a look at Ari and Caleb. Ari was still right next to me, but Caleb was 2 or 3 meters away. If Ari was an Esper, surely Caleb was as well. So, James, were you the one who said that Ari might be an Esper? I think you were. Espers and also criminals. Yeah, so you were right about Ari being an Esper. I already knew he was, but I didn't want to spoil it for you. I had no reason to assume this was tied with what happened yesterday. That or a sparkly vampire. His skin is too dark to be a vampire. Because aren't vampires supposed to be really super pale? I had no reason to assume this was tied with what happened yesterday, and yet it seemed like it was too big a coincidence for it not to be connected. But even knowing that, it wasn't like it told me what they wanted with me. No one else is around. I'll contact the tower and have the Morai try to get a read on this place. But before that, care to explain why you brought us here? Yes, because vampires don't see the light of day. I mean, look at how dark he's like the same dark skin tone as Dahlia. No one else knows who we're with. If they do manage to track us this far, they still won't be able to determine who managed to succeed in acquiring her. I chewed my lip and kept one eye on them as I carefully pushed myself up. My legs were cramping and something hard was jammed into my knee. Even if I couldn't run yet, I didn't have to stay all huddled up. For now, I just... If they convert humans, they can look like anyone. That's true. But like I said, vampires aren't a thing here. Ugh. Doubled over, its nausea returned with a righteous vengeance. So, moving was a bad plan. I gripped my abdomen hard enough I was surprised it didn't push my stomach out through my spine. Crimson knows who we are. Crimson? He's the only one. So you're hoping that if no one knows which faction took her, they'll just fight amongst themselves for a while? That's a long shot. I tried to listen in as I fought off the nausea, but none of it made sense. They're talking about factions and crimson. All things that had nothing to do with me. I was a student. We can't stay here. If Crimson doesn't find out where we went, someone else will. We aren't the only one with bishops. Let's go. He joined me and Ari, stopping a half a meter or so away. How is she? Not well. Dahlia Blumenthal, can you stand? I managed to glare at him through my hair, gritting out an answer. Do I look like I can stand? I believe that means no. I apologize for the discomfort. As I mentioned, the first jump is often rough for people. I would have subjected you to it if it hadn't been necessary. Okay, enough. We don't have time for you to play the night. We need to move, even if it means one of us has to carry her. Caleb. I winced as the buzzing in my head came back. Get her to her feet? Come on. I know how she feels, but we can't wait for her to recover. My apologies, Dahlia. Ari, clearly the more polite of the two, tried to pull me to my feet. I did not cooperate. Only partially due to being ill, but mostly because I didn't want to go anywhere. The further we got from my home, the less likely I'd be able to get back. Why are you doing this? My parents can't pay a ransom. Neither one bothered to answer my question. I swallowed hard, wishing I at least had something to wash my mouth out with. As if in answer to my thoughts, a small flask appeared in the edge of my vision. I stared at it apprehensively. Drink quickly. We need to leave. Okay. Saving again. So this is a choice between flexible or stubborn. Can take the flask and drink or slap it out of his hand. We're being flexible. So I reached for the flask hesitantly. Did I really want to accept a drink from these two idiots? Not really, but logically speaking, it was probably just water. They clearly didn't need to poison me or drug me to make me go with them. Considering they had yet to do that and had succeeded in grabbing you, yes. I unscrewed the cap and took a sip, wondering why he was carrying a flask of water around anyway, just in case any girls he happened to kidnap vomited their guts up. Calling it base, go to work, yeah. I turned away from him as I took a sip and swished it around my mouth, making a face at the taste. I immediately spit it back out off to one side, noticing a touch too late that Caleb had moved close enough to be in the splash zone. Not that I felt bad about splashing vomit water on his shoes. Well, not too bad anyway. He hissed his annoyance, not quite getting out of the way in time. I think she's well enough to handle a second jump. Caleb. Alright, we don't have time to wait. If she can act like that, she can handle it. I ripped myself out of his arms and took a wobbly step away. No, I was not doing that again. If not because I had no intention of being kidnapped, then because I wasn't going to endure my insides turning themselves upside down again. What do you people even want with me? Ari stepped to my side again and set a hand on my shoulder. Dahlia. No, you're just going to take me away from here? What do you even want with me? Dahlia, we're here to help you. I know this must be difficult. By kidnapping me and nearly killing me? He looked almost sad, and that just made me even angrier. This wasn't a situation where the villains got to be sympathetic. We'll explain everything later. Let's go. It's already later. He took me by the wrist, and this time I couldn't get away from him. Caleb, get ready to make another jump, Ari. We don't have time. Ari moved closer, and I just lost it. There was no time to worry about how I felt or who they were. I was already far from home, and going for another jump was out of the question. No! I clawed at Caleb's hand, trying to pry it off my wrist. Stop! Calm down! I tried to pin my free hand with his as I dug my nails into his fingers to pry them off. I somehow managed to drag my wrist from his grasp, only to have the other immediately captured. It was at that moment I attacked full force, screaming, kicking, and clawing at anything I could reach. Damn it! Ari! He pinned my wrist, but I kicked out savagely, catching him awkwardly in the thigh. Let go! Ari slipped his hands under my arms and started to drag me out of leg reach while Caleb cursed loudly. Apparently neither of them had been expecting the outburst. I hadn't really been planning it either, but I might as well just go with it now. I twisted violently, trying to wrench myself from Ari. I was still watching Caleb out of the corner of my eye. He was definitely trying to work out how to get close enough without getting another kick, but he suddenly whipped his head to the left, his eyes going wide. Ari, watch out! I didn't get the chance to see what caught his attention before the pillar beside us exploded. Dun dun dun! And that's the end of chapter 2. It's taken me an hour and 15 minutes or so to actually get through chapter 3. Or sorry, chapter 2. Do I want to try to do chapter 3? I want to keep going. Iron and steel will bend and bow. I screamed and ducked down when the pillar exploded. Ari grabbed me and dragged me back, spinning both of us around the edge of one of the other pillars. I stood there, heart hammering back to stone, and face staring at Ari's Adam's apple as they shielded me from a volley of what sounded like weapons fire? Sort of? I didn't actually hear a weapon, just the sound of the building being damaged around us. Even sonic weapons would make noise. I couldn't understand what was happening. Caleb, who had dived behind some nearby rubble, pulled out a small handgun and fired back at our attacker. I clapped my hands to my ears, sending up a panicked prayer as everything spiraled completely out of control. The ground less than half a meter from me exploded, shooting a spray of stone flecks out towards my face. At the same time, the entire building shook as if hit from the outside. Instinct kicked in and my body moved on its own. I had no idea where I was intending to run. I was just going to run. Away was as far as my brain got. Ari stepped in front of me, placing one arm across my shoulders to pin me in place while he fended off any debris that would have struck me. It's the second time he was putting himself in harm's way to protect me. Though I wouldn't have been in harm's way in the first place if not for him. Not this time around. I flinched as the building shook again. Someone outside attacking us too? But how? Why? It was too far beyond my ability to cope with or understand. I curled against Ari's chest as if making myself as small as possible would help. If he wanted to take the brunt of whatever was happening, I would let him. A loud explosion rumbled through the floor, and several more shots struck the ground just beyond the pillar. Strong enough to fling bullets without using chemical propellants? I have a feeling that'd be something up there with the king or queen ranking. Caleb fired back, though it didn't seem to do much good. Is it just me or is that a cyburst? It is not just you. Who even is that? What's... Ari calmly placed a hand over my mouth. Boom! Will you shut up? They didn't exactly introduce themselves before they started flinging those things at us. He stopped berating me only long enough to fire several shots at the attacker. I shoved Ari's hand off my face. Why are you shouting at me like that's my fault? And there are two of them now. One has a sonic rifle. There appear to be more of them outside. Not sure if they're from the same faction. Yeah, I noticed that when they started trying to bring the whole damn place down on our heads. The moment they get over the wall out there, we're done. Ari peered around the pillar. Those two are shooting at each other for the moment. Perhaps we should take the opportunity to flee. Flee where? You teleport and we might as well send up a beacon saying who we are and where we're going. What was the point of even coming here if we do that? For a moment it was so surreal, as if I was watching it all from the outside. Caleb and Ari were just having a conversation while Caleb exchanged weapons fire with two people, one who was apparently an Esper shooting some sort of psi attack at us. I just couldn't get my head around it. How the hell did they find us anyway? An adept team of bishops, no doubt. Are you even ever going to tell me what's happening? I let out another short scream as something hit the pillar Ari and I were behind, sending a terrifyingly powerful vibration through my body. Never mind, I'm not talking anymore. Ari, get her the hell out of here. I think it would be unwise to leave you alone. You cannot... Get the queen out of here, Vaughn. That's an order. Queen. Queen? No way. I hope you realize you do not outrank me. Damn it, Ari, just do it. His eyes, they changed. Caleb suddenly darted out from his hiding place to another pillar to get a better vantage point from which to murder people, I assumed. He fired off more shots, leaving me wondering why he was using a weapon and not whatever psi abilities he possessed. Ari sighed, and I had the strangest feeling this sort of situation had played out with them many times. That this was just every day for them. I need to get you to a safer location while they're distracted with each other, but I don't wish to attract attention, so we're going to run. Wait, what? He took my hand and with a quick look around the pillar dragged me away from where we were to another pillar a short distance away. I ducked my head down and bit my lip to keep from screaming the entire way. Running around in a place where people were shooting at each other wasn't something I wanted to do again. From behind our new hiding spot, Ari scanned the area as if deciding on a path. I had a sinking feeling we were definitely doing that again. There is a corridor on the adjacent wall. If we can make it there, we should be safe. Why not just teleport like you did before? My teleportation ability leaves a distinctive distortion trail that can be tracked. Teleporting across the room will draw attention and fire. I grabbed his arm, glaring up at him. I meant, why not teleport us out of this damn building to safety? I know you can teleport over long distances. Why not get us out of here instead of running around and hiding like this? The same reason. A longer distance means a more visible trail. We prefer to not leave a clear signal as to who you are with, much less where we've taken you. Taken me? Stop talking about me like I'm a thing! This is no time for a discussion. Just to punctuate that, a shot from one of the others slammed into the pillar we had just left, taking a huge chunk off. Ari checked quickly, then looked back my way. We're going. Wait! He did not wait. He grabbed my arm, and together we darted from that pillar to a pile of rubble. Ari ducked behind it and pulled me to the ground with him. As I went down, I caught a look at one of the people Caleb was fighting, a woman in black with some kind of breathing mask on her face. She slinked back out of the fractured rainbow light from above and into the shadows. Right as she winked out of sight, she looked our way. And maybe I just imagined it, but it felt like our eyes met. A shiver crawled down my spine. And then she was gone. Ari had seen her vanish as well. He crouched behind the debris, Esper arm passing over his face. A knight. This isn't good. A knight, which meant she could teleport like him. We weren't really safe anywhere in this room. Not when Caleb wasn't right next to us, prepared to shoot anyone who teleported to our location. Dahlia, hold on to me. His eyes changed. What? They are teleporting after all. I didn't actually have time to do it. Rather, Ari grabbed me and once again the world twisted and warped. When I staggered out of whatever you would call that sensation, we were right in front of the opening Ari mentioned before. It opened into the yawning darkness. He shoved me in, tugging me against the wall just beyond the doorway. I thought you said we weren't doing that again. The situation changed. Stay quiet. His body was tense, as if he was watching to see if we'd be followed. But from where he was standing, the room we'd left wasn't even visible from where we stood. Thankfully, the knight appears to be preoccupied with Caleb and the other one for now. It doesn't appear that anyone is heading this way, though we can't be certain they aren't aware of which direction we went. The building shuddered again, sending a shower of dirt on us from above. Ari planted his arms on either side of me, and the air buzzed slightly with what I could only assume was psi energy. He managed to block most of the debris. So his eyes change when he uses psi abilities. Seconds later, Ari was pulling me further from the light and into the darkened corridor, but he glanced behind worriedly. Don't believe Caleb will hold that long alone. I bit back the sarcastic response to that, because as angry as I was, I didn't really want Caleb to get hurt, or anyone. I hope no one got hurt. It was a stupid, childish hope that had absolutely no place here, though. We don't know how many are outside either. A knight that can use cybursts that strong is unusual. He seemed to be talking to himself more than me, but I hesitated to look up at him. What's a cyburst? A psychic attack. You cannot be hit by one, Dahlia. A psychokinetic attack that can damage the physical world and disrupt a person's auric system, causing permanent neural damage. Cybursts are made of very condensed psi energy that is fired at high velocities. Some Espers are capable of blocking them, particularly knights who specialize in shield techniques. Rooks are able to somewhat protect their bodies with physical enhancements. Most bishops can learn to block them as well. But for those who cannot block them, they can cause severe, possibly permanent damage to synaptic pathways. A weak cyburst may only cause temporary pain and weakness, but a powerful one can kill on impact. Oh boy. Auric system. Oh, the system that controls the psionic ability. Okay. Besides the physical damage, they can severely disrupt the neural pathways of people who don't know how to block them. Does Caleb know how to block them? Caleb is a rook. His ability to physically enhance his body gives him a measure of resistance to this type of attack. A measure of. That didn't sound very promising. Ari stopped blocking and set his hands on my shoulders, leaning down to look earnestly into my eyes. Dahlia, you must hide. What? She and the others are targeting you. We had hoped to retrieve you before the other factions found you or moved in, but we underestimated them. What does that even mean? Listen to me. I'm unsure who's outside at the moment, but someone is interfering with our connection to the net. I've been trying to call for backup, but I cannot connect. For now, I need to retrieve Caleb. In the worst case, I'll get the three of us to safety. It's better for them to know who we are than for you to fall into their hands. Find a safe place to hide until we come for you. He turned away, but I grabbed his sleeve. You're wrong, all of you. You're wrong about me. You are the one who is wrong. Then tell me who you are. Are you? We'll explain everything soon. You have my word. Be safe, Dahlia. And with that, the space in front of me distorted slightly, and he vanished. I sagged against the wall, unsure if I should be relieved or terrified now that I was alone. From the sound of it, fighting was intensifying on all sides. I didn't know what to do. Whether it was because we didn't go far, or because I had already done it once, the effects of the second jump hadn't been as bad as the first. I felt shaky, but that was more from being shot at than teleporting again. But I was glad for a few seconds to stop and collect my thoughts. Where do I go now? I didn't want to hide only to be caught by Arya and Caleb later on. Just because the other people searching for me were also terrifying didn't mean I would choose to go with them quietly. I clenched my jaw and continued down the corridor the way Arya and I had been going. There was very little light filtering in, and it was creepy as hell, but I wouldn't have a chance like this again. While they were occupied, I needed to get as far away as I could. I couldn't afford to be cautious now. If I could make it outside, I could figure out how to get away from it all. I would get home again. Somehow. Broken glass crunched under my feet as I walked, but the sounds of fighting faded a bit as I went deeper into the building. I wasn't sure where I was going. My father had worked in places like this, though. Based on having been in a few similar buildings, I figured I would find emergency exits at the far end of this main hallway. There might be some in the rooms I'd passed, but I didn't want to corner myself in one of those, just in case. In the meantime, my mind was rolling with questions and uncomfortable theories. Caleb had mentioned a queen, or rather he clearly called me that. queen, huh? That they somehow thought I was a queen-ranked Esper might explain their actions somewhat. Espers were rare, less than 2% of the population, and of those, even fewer hit the upper ranks of the EAA scale. Queens and kings were the two rarest ability types. Less than 1% of Espers held those ranks. Far less. But I had never once demonstrated telekinesis on the level of something like a queen rank. Based on the skills I'd exhibited, I'd always assumed I was on the lowest rung. To have them thinking I was a queen. What would cause them to assume that? The window thing? That couldn't be it. Shattering a window was basic telekinesis, something even a pseudo-Esper might be able to do if they were panicked. Besides, Ari had already been nearby when that happened. Coincidence, or had they already been watching me? Had that whole incident been planned, a way to test my abilities or something? But that still didn't really answer why. And if it had been a test, breaking a window should have failed me right away. It was hardly an impressive feat of psi. Yet somehow, if Ari was to be believed, several factions had homed in on me as a potential queen? And what factions anyway? Endgame was the only one usually sweeping up stray Espers. I couldn't imagine them shooting at people, though. I mean, they were essentially a vast army of high-ranking Espers. Could Ari and Caleb be from Endgame? Why not just say so? Though I suppose I probably wouldn't have believed them if they claimed it. Ugh, I didn't know. How could I come up with any solid answers based on the limited information I had? I couldn't. So for now, getting away from this madness was my priority. With knights who could pop in and out of shadows or wormholes, and who even knows what other abilities, I wouldn't feel safe until I was hitting somewhere none of them would find me. And even then, maybe not. They literally kidnapped me off the street in broad daylight and no one noticed. What could you do to fight against something like that? And Ari had mentioned some kind of interference with the net. I hadn't even tried to call for help since we arrived. Too much happened all at once. But sure enough, when I went to pull up my interface and connect to the safety department, there was nothing. One of the factions out there had enough clout to put up some kind of widespread interference with the nano system. That was insane! It wasn't like just anyone could do that. Endgame, Crimson, groups of that caliber, sure. Or the government. Okay, I was in so deep over my head I didn't know if I'd ever be able to claw my way back out. Okay, good night, James. Thanks for coming by. I could not go to pieces. I absolutely could not. Just focus on one thing at a time. Trying to think about everything at once would get me nowhere. I locked my eyes on the cluttered ground and just tried to pick a careful path through the dark hall as I took slow, deep breaths. Except for the debris, the place was gutted. Offices and other rooms were empty, doors hanging open on broken hinges. The walls were scorched and some doors were twisted and burned, an ugly reminder of the escalation that led to last year's attack. And now it was under attack again, for a different reason. A soft scuffle of movement in a room to my left caught my attention. I froze, eyes wide, as I tried to stare into the darkness there. I immediately thought of that lady in black, slinking through the shadows the way she did. Okay, first choice of the chapter. So it looks like there's like 3 choices per chapter. Cautious, run back the way you came. Analytical, ask who's there. Confident, pick up a weapon, get ready to fight. So of the 3 traits, confident is the only one that I picked before. So cautious is the flip side of confident, and analytical. Actually, I think before I did have an emotional option before, but I didn't pick it. So yeah, confident, pick up a weapon and get ready to fight. I staggered back, fighting the urge to run. That was just asking to fall and probably end up hurt. Besides, I was up against people who could teleport. What good would running even do? But I wouldn't roll over and do nothing. Not this time. I stooped and fumbled in the dark at my feet until my fingers bumped into something heavy enough to feel like it might make a good weapon. The twisted metal pole wasn't going to do much against an Esper, but I felt better with it in my hand. Backing from the open door, I pressed myself against the far wall, holding the pole, or pipe, or whatever it was, in front of me, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I shouldn't overreact. It could just be a rodent. It could just be a rodent of some kind. But all things considered, it was better to be a little wary. The shuffling grew louder, and any hope that was a rat evaporated. Those were definitely the footsteps of a person. A lumpy shape stepped up to the doorframe, but I couldn't make out many details in the dark. I was relieved it wasn't the night from before. The shape was too bulky, and they were moving oddly, sort of slow and halting. Don't come any closer! I can only come closer and closer. My blood froze at the sound of that whisper. How? The whispers crawled in me like snakes to stole my soul. I can hear him strangling all the light with his eyes. His eyes are everywhere, and me only want to be in you. How can you be here? There's nowhere else for me to be. I have no other place anymore. The figure stepped into a patch of light that filtered in from somewhere. Oh my gosh, he changed! Wow! And a strangled breath caught in my throat. It was exactly what I thought it was. The man from the alley, the one who had attacked me. But he was different somehow, changed. He'd never looked all that healthy, but now his skin had gone ghostly pale. There was a strange gold light that shone from his eyes. I didn't understand what I was seeing. What could change someone like that? Drugs didn't do that to you. Nothing should be able to do that to you. He looks like Geralt from The Witcher, except unhealthy. I know you. Yes, we met before. His eyes seemed to linger on the twisted pipe in my hands. Another choice. Except interestingly, neither of these choices matches with the traits that I picked. Cautious is the opposite of confident, and stubborn is the opposite of flexible. But we're gonna go with stubborn. Because it's her only weapon. She's not gonna drop it. I tightened my grip on it, unsure what he would do next. They know you. He found you because of me, or he found me because of you. He found us all the same, and now we're going to fall into the ice and disappear. What? You could have saved me. What are you? Why didn't you save me? He cut me off as his voice rose to a shriek. He rushed at me, mouth twisted open, eyes wide and gleaming in the faint light. I let out a very brave scream and swung the pole at him. It wasn't like I didn't know how to defend myself a little. My brother worked for the safety department. He had done the self-defense things with me before. But that was different from actually fighting with someone that wanted to hurt you. Even so, I wasn't letting him grab me again. The man dodged my first hit, but not the second. It connected solidly with him and he went down. Oh, okay, I would take that. I took off running, determined to get away. But unfortunately, he wasn't an ordinary attacker. He was an Esper, and a strange one at that. He was up and after me in seconds, and he was faster than I was. Something hit me square in the back, sending me sprawling. My weapon went flying. I tried to scramble away from him, ignoring the biting pain in my hands and knees. An explosion of pain screamed its way through my neck and scalp. He had me by the hair. I jerked backwards, twisting and clawing at his hands. My nails dug into his flesh, and suddenly I was staggering forward as he let go. I couldn't catch myself this time, and I went down hard under the ruthless pull of gravity and inertia. The side of my face smacked the floor, and everything went black. Again. Somewhere in the back of my head, I knew I tasted blood. I wasn't quite awake, but I could hear his raspy whispering, and that's what pulled me back into the world of waking. I wasn't sure how long I'd been out. 5 seconds? 10? He had me by the ankle and was dragging me down the hallway. I hissed and arched my back as my shirt dragged upwards. Bits of stone and glass scraped across my skin, cutting into the flesh. If I hadn't been awake before, I was now, mostly. My mind was foggy. The only thing clear at that moment was the pain. Have to get away. I somehow found the energy to snap out a savage kick at the hand gripping my ankle, twisting my body to find something to grab onto. My fingertips were bruised and cut by the ragged floor. One nail caught and ripped away. Ouch! That hurts! I screamed in pain and let the frustration fuel my assault. I drove my heel into the man's hand and he finally released me. I forced myself to stand despite my body's protests. It took every ounce of willpower to not immediately black out. I didn't think I could run, but I was going to try. The man, muttering to himself, gave me a baleful glare, and I knew he was about to lunge at me again. Through my hazy vision, I saw it coming, but this time I moved towards him at the same instant, lifting a knee to drive it straight into his gut. He didn't expect it and doubled over with a pained grunt, slipped to the ground and started running. And for the first time in my life, I tried to find whatever sign might lurk somewhere in me. I looked behind me, flung a hand out, and hoped for something, anything, for a door to fly off the hinges and hit him, for a wall to crumble and block the way. Instead, there was a pulse of energy that shot away from me and towards him. It struck him just as he was getting up again, and he hit the floor, screaming. I squeezed my eyes shut and kept going this time, fleeing back the direction I'd come as fast as I could go. I hadn't actually gotten very far into the corridor, not as far as I thought I had anyway. I reached the opening that led to the main atrium in what seemed like almost no time at all. The silence out there was unnerving. I didn't realize it as I ran, but as I paused near the door with one hand resting on the wall to catch my breath, the sounds of fighting had stopped. What was he even doing back here? I was supposed to be getting away. But with that man back there, it felt like I was hemmed in by enemies. Not sure if I was being pursued or what I should do, I peered carefully into the atrium. My eyes went wide. There were bodies. Not just one or two. I could only assume the people from outside had gotten inside at some point. They were strewn about, and I didn't know if they were unconscious or dead. And one of them was familiar. Caleb. He was alive, moving and struggling to sit up. That woman in black was just in front of him, her foot connected with his jaw, sending him slumping back to the floor. I let out an involuntary cry, and her head whipped around to me as I clapped my hands to my mouth. Whoops! Too late, she definitely spotted me. She held a hand out, and I knew what was coming. The air in front of me warped as I saw something released from her palm. And Ari was there, looking like he was barely standing as he held his arms up to block with one of his shields, what I could only assume was a cyburst. He's not looking so good, is he? Why did you return? Someone attacked me. He looked back and reached out with one hand, then crumpled to the ground, and the woman was right behind him. I backed away, heart drumming against my ribs like it was ready to jump out of my chest. No. She simply kicked Ari's unconscious form to the side like it was nothing as she came towards me. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of it. I wanted to go home. I wanted my normal life. The woman reached for me. I covered my head, ducking lower as if I could shield myself from her. Don't touch me! I screamed the word, and from somewhere deep inside, that scream just built and ripped its way out of me with enough force it felt as though I was ripping my throat open. It was like my own voice echoed inside my head over and over. There was a rumble and shattering glass. Steel bent, broke. Rubble was falling. Everything was falling. And then reality twisted. Cold air hit me, and I was running. Chapter 4, the board is set. Okay. That wasn't a long chapter. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. Definitely done for the day now. I want to keep going, but oh my gosh, it's getting close to 2 hours, and that's my personal time limit. Okay. So, we've met Caleb, we've met Ari, we've met Ruben. We haven't met any of these others yet. Let's see, galleries. So, we've got Ari. Anything from Caleb? Oh, I think that's from doing the other choice. Nothing from Jack or Lance or Magnus, MC, just asleep on the couch. The hair color changes depending on what you pick. And then the picture of Ruben. So here's a flow chart. So this is from last week, from chapter 1. This is from this week, another early morning. Not that busy. A dramatic kidnapping. Fight the attacker. Chase to the vivarium. Take the flask, slap it away, under attack. And then chapter 3, serious attacker, confident variation, Delta Dark Highway, confident or stubborn. Pick up a weapon, keep holding onto it, fight off the man, a desperate escape. And then of course chapter 4 is for next week. Okay. And of course, oh my gosh, look at all these chapters for Ari! So we have all those chapters for each of them. I'm not going to play all the routes on stream. I think just one is going to be enough. Okay, key. Main story scene, normal scene or scenario. Branch scene, romance scenario. Steamy scenario, customization related variation, normal choice, personality lock choice, bad ending. Normal scene or scenario, choice specific scene or scenario, personality lock choice scene or scene, bad ending choice. Solid outline, any color, no additional variations with scene. Broken outline, any color, scene scenario contains solid variations based on previous choices or customization. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I will be back next week. I hope you have a lovely St. Patty's Day, even though I'm not on camera. You can be assured I'm wearing green. And if it's not St. Patty's Day when you watch this, thank you for watching it anyway. I hope you have a lovely day. Take care, and I'll be back next week. Bye!